So welcome. Hello, everyone. I'm Cecil Williams from the Workforce Alliance of the North Bay, and I'd like to welcome you to the first session of the Fall 2022 Bright Futures Career Speaker Series. The Bright Futures Career Speaker Series is an educational webinar series sponsored by the Napa County Office of Education, the Marin County Office of Education, the Napa Valley College, College of Marin, and the Workforce Alliance of the North Bay. Today's presentation topics will cover careers in mental health and social services. The moderator of today's program is Angela Higdon with the Napa County Office of Education. And as you can see, we have 4 career presenters today. They will introduce themselves shortly. And as you probably noticed, we are recording this webinar, so educators can use this in the classroom. Before we get started with today's program, I'm going to do some quick housekeeping so that we're all on the same page throughout the webinar. So first of all, why offer a career speaker series? Well, first, we'd like to introduce you to some of our local professional experts. We'd like to introduce you to jobs that you may not have heard about before, and we'd like to help you make an informed decision about the next steps in your career path, whether you're a student or a job seeker. What to expect today. The presentation hour will include an introduction like we're doing right now, speaker panel discussion time, and question and answer time. Please use the chat function of the webinar to ask your questions. We will repeat the questions out loud for the speakers. And as you can see, this is our career speaker series schedule for the fall program. Please join us if you can for the future webinars. And with that, I'm going to hand over the mic to Angela Higdon, who will get our program started.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. First, thank you so much for everybody who joined us. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our participants. So this is going to be a simple question and answer session. Again, participants, we encourage you to put your questions in the chat, and we will make sure that those take priority over everything else. Before we get started, I'd like to go ahead and just have each of our speakers, if we can, introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about your organization and your role within the organization. And Michael Padilla, we'll start with you.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me, just to make sure. My name is Michael Padilla, and I do work with Napa County Health and Human Services. My role here at the agency is a social worker for the Housing Support Program and Bringing Families Home, which is programs in our community that assist families with dependents experiencing housing instability or either homelessness.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Maurice, what about you?
Hello. Hi, everybody. I'm Maurice DuPont. I work here at the Napa Health and Human Services as well. I'm a social worker here, and then my primary role is working with our families who are in crisis, who are at risk of losing their homes, mental health crises, anything that can kind of shake up the family household. So that's where I come in.
All right. Thanks, Maurice. Glynis, what about you?
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to this event. I'm very excited. My name is Glynis Banks. I am the director of the Oakland Vet Center, so I work under Veteran Affairs. We serve as veterans who served in combat, military sexual trauma, those who were in emergency personnel, so first responders, mental health personnel, those who have serviced those who experienced trauma. We also work with reservists who were called up to active duty, either here in the United States or abroad for a conflict or natural disaster, as well as those who suffered any kind of psychological distress during their time in the service. So I work with veterans and their families who are trying to adjust to life outside of the military. And so that's a very sensitive field. As a director, I oversee a staff of 5, 3 counselors, 1 outreach specialist, and 1 office manager. We do groups, which are clinical as well as recreational, and that includes everything from standard counseling treatment to recreational things like the arts. And I run groups, I do individual counseling as well, and I do administrative things overseeing the entire center. We are based in Oakland, California, so I'm not quite up there near Napa Valley, but we are down in the Bay.
All right, Glynis, thank you so much. And Michael Kitsis.
Yeah, hi. Hey, Angela, can you give me an idea of what group of people we're talking to, kind of age range and that kind of thing?
So yes, so it's a wide range. We have high school students. We may have some students from some of our local college, our community colleges, and even some job seekers. I'm not exactly sure of our
Yeah, I
today.
can add a little bit. We have a lot of educators and community partners that have registered for this webinar. So, even if they're not here today, they get the link to our video and may use it in their high school or college classrooms. So,
Okay, thanks. So my name is Michael Kitsis. I work for Solano County. I'm a senior behavioral health manager. Behavioral health is comprised of mental health and substance abuse services. We serve all people that have Medi-Cal as an insurance carrier in the county. We probably serve about 5,000 clients across the county. Most of those are adults, probably about 1,000 kids. And I run the county's children and adolescent mental health clinics.
All right, Michael, thank you so much. So Michael Kitsis, we're going to stay with you. And just your first question, again, the purpose of this webinar is really about career exploration. So we're trying to introduce careers from various sectors to our students and to our job seekers. And so what we'll be asking today really has to do with your path and any information you can provide on what they'll need to get into a career such as yours. So my first question for you, Michael Kitsis, is when did you decide you wanted to work in your industry?
Angela, that's a great question. I actually originally got a business degree out of college, and I worked on Wall Street for a few years. So, and I use that as an example because so many of the people I know did not end up where they started. So that's always a good thing to remember, that, you learn along the way, you learn what you like and you learn what you don't like. I learned I didn't like it on Wall Street, even though it was, actually paid good money, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. So I worked on Wall Street, and then I actually went on a trip to Asia for a few months, and I came back and I enrolled in a master's program at what was then Cal State Hayward and what is now Cal State East Bay. So I really went quite a circular route in order to find out that I really wanted to work with people in mental health.
Right. Wow. Thank you. Glynis, what about you?
I agree with Michael. I started off, I wanted to be a lawyer, so I went and got my undergrad in criminal justice. However, my mother and many of her friends are social workers, and so when I got out of my undergrad, she said, "Oh, just get a job in social work and save up your money and then go to law school." And so I got a job, thanks to her, in social work, and I've never left. The reason why I entered into mental health as far as social work is I worked child welfare when I first started, and seeing children that were abused not really getting the counseling support they needed to overcome those abuses really upset me. And so I decided to get my master's degree in clinical social work. And initially I did do inpatient psych with adolescents and children, and then transition to all the other things, and having friends who are veterans and realizing there was a need for them as well. And the veteran population is severely neglected. There's some efforts made, but they are neglected. And so I shifted from children to working with veterans.
All right, Glynis, thank you. Michael Padilla.
Hello, everyone. Again, how I got into social services was kind of out of just pure luck, I guess. So to go back, I did start my educational journey at the Napa Valley community college, so I am a transfer student, a proud transfer student, and transferred to UCLA. I was lucky enough during my time at the community college and at UCLA to have a lot of great mentors and a lot of people that helped me through my educational journey, and also provided me opportunities to help other students during their educational learning and be a peer mentor. And that's when I kind of figured out that I really just wanted to provide information and provide resources, help people through their journeys, through difficult systems like social services, like obtaining help in moments of need and stuff like that. But after graduation, didn't really have a career pathway that I wanted to follow, but knew that county jobs were just good jobs, stable jobs, and that's kind of like how I ended up here. I became an eligibility worker first, and then moved into my role as a social worker for these housing programs. And I think what at the core, what I really enjoy is helping people that are disenfranchised, people that don't have a good understanding of how our systems work, what resources are out there, and working with them to really empower them to seek them out with me, but also after I'm no longer working with their families and stuff like that. So again, my educational journey wasn't similar to the job that I do now. My major is in Chicano studies, which is something different, but it does give me a basis of information and understanding of how people could be disenfranchised with systems that informs the work that I do today.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael. And last but not least, Maurice, when did you
Hey,
decide
everybody.
you wanted to work in social work?
I also had a quite a roundabout path in getting here. Originally, I wanted to be a pro athlete, so that's why I went to college. Went to college, I wanted to be a pro athlete, and then I chose sociology as an undergrad. Fell in love with the classes. They were so interesting to me. Just working with people and in their environments. And then once I graduated, there was an agency. There was a agency that was always hiring. I saw when I was looking on all the Craigslist and Indeed, and I started working at an agency called Seneca Center. And then I was working at a level 14 group home. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but you're working with kids who are going through a lot, who are in crisis all the time. And as hard as it was, I loved it. I loved working with the kids. I love just being a part of making someone's life better. Enough to where I decided to go back to school, and then I went to school for counseling. I graduated with that degree, and then not sure what path I wanted to go, but fell into social work because I wanted to just get back into working with people. I spent some time as a correctional officer, whole different field, and then missed helping people. So now I'm a social worker again, and it's what I like. It's what I enjoy. I like helping people.
That's great, Maurice. Thank you so much. Glynis, we'll take the next one back to you. And you've all kind of answered this, but I'd like to go a little bit more in depth with this. Why do you do what you do?
Oh, that's a good question. So the reason why I work with veterans right now is that I did want to be in the service. And so when I went during my first year of undergrad, I did a work study at the local police academy. I really wanted to do this. So I get up super early and I work as the receptionist and learning all the stuff. And I went to a recruiter for the Navy because I want to be in the Navy. And he said, "No, you're too fat. You'll never lose weight in time. Like you're not going to make it." And so it crushed me because he was just so unwilling to work with me. And I said, "You know what? Forget it. I'm not going to join the military. Forget the military." And then I went on and got my degree. And so I ended up just attracting all these veterans as friends, all these, active service members as friends. And I saw some of the struggles that they were having. And as I began my practice in counseling and they saw that, they said, you know what, you're so easy to talk to that even though you never served, you talk in such a way that makes people comfortable to share even the most intimate secrets that they have that they don't normally share with other people. And so a good friend of mine encouraged me to apply, and I did. And I use this as my way of serving the country. So even though I couldn't serve in the actual military, me helping those who made that sacrifice to serve is my contribution to our country, because helping them to be stable and to feel a part of the world again is a gift to all of us, because they did make a sacrifice, one of the biggest sacrifices, which is I'm going to put my life on the line for all these unknown names and faces. And so since I could not serve in that capacity, this is my way of service.
Wow, thank you so much. Michael Padilla, same question to you. Why do you do what you do?
I think I've briefly mentioned it in my previous answer, but I think knowledge is so crucial, and especially when families are in moments of need and are at their most vulnerable, right, with not actually having a stable place for them or their children. My mindset is to provide them the much support as possible and empower them with the knowledge that they need to get out of those situations, but also the knowledge that they need in order to build a foundation that can get them out of their circumstances, get them into a stable place, but also think beyond that. Like my role in as a social worker and working with these families is to get them to think of possibilities that weren't even a reality to them maybe 2 or 3 months ago, or ever in their life, and make it a possibility and get them a pathway there. So that's why I'm passionate about the work that I do, helping families, because my family are those families that I'm helping before. I come from those same roots, right? I've experienced not having a stable place to stay when I was in college and in the university in a different city and all of that, and navigating all of those systems. So a lot of the times I see my parents in the people that I'm helping. I see my cousins in the people that I'm helping. I see myself in the people that I'm helping. So that's why I'm super passionate about the work that I do.
That's great, Michael. Thank you. Maurice, and I know you've all kind of touched on this, but do you mind diving a little deeper into why do you do what you do every day?
Yeah, I was thinking to dig in a little deeper. I enjoy crisis management. Um, it's a field that not a lot of people enjoy or want to do, but within the social work, all this field is like we're dealing with a lot of mental health. We're dealing with a lot of people that have a lot of issues, and we want to manage those to so they could get back on track and live their life normally function as possible. But I think for me, the crisis management always had a knack for it. I always had a knack for helping people when they're at their worst. And I think maybe it might come from my background in sports. I don't know, like dealing with chaos and staying calm, and then just guiding someone through the fog. So for me, that's why I specifically like working with families that are in crisis, working with people who are in crisis, because um, it it kind of comes natural for me, and I feel like I can do it better than most, so I want to do it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Maurice. And Michael Kitsis, what about you?
So I'm super fortunate. I've worked for Solano County in mental health for 24 years, and I still completely like coming in, and I still really love my job. And the reason for that is I think anybody in social services or in mental health, if you don't have a calling to do that, then you probably shouldn't do it, because it's incredibly difficult. It's incredibly challenging. You deal with people who are really, really suffering and having a hard time, and you have to deal with a lot of things and not get overwhelmed by them, or at least work on it if you do get overwhelmed by them. But if you have a passion, if you have a calling towards doing mental health or social services, it's kind of a labor of love. It's something that you feel like makes you feel better instead of feel worse. And you know, a lot of people that I talk to, my friends or people, they say, "Oh my God, how could you do that? How could you deal with people that are suffering all the time?" And it's kind of like my life's blood. It's like, because when you can help them, when you can help people feel better, it's a really great thing for me. So if you have that call, if you have that kind of desire, then that's a great thing to do.
Great, thank you so much. Maurice, what in your mind are the key personality traits and skills required for somebody to be successful in the kind of work that you do?
I think you have to just have a natural like empath about you. You have to like genuinely care for people. And you have to genuinely want to care for how people are going to be. Um, I think you have to have that ability to stay calm in chaos. Because in our work, dealing with the people that we do and all the things that they go through, most of the time you're going to be dealing with people who are in some kind of crisis, give it big or little. So I think just those abilities to just stay calm and actually be able to be empathetic and hear people and care about people are, I think those are key for me.
Okay, thank you. Glynis, same question.
I can piggyback off of what Maurice and Michael said. I do think that social work is a calling. Oops, I knew that was going to go off as soon as I got on here, right? I love Mark Anthony, so he's always my ringtone. I do think that this is a calling. This is something that you have to want to do. This is a human field, and human beings, you know, in the world right now are suffering, and they've suffered for generations and generations. And if you're not prepared to deal with the ugliness of society that we live in, because some of our folks are victims of the ugliness of the world that we live in, particularly here in the Bay Area, then this isn't for you. And so I think it's being human, embracing your humanity. It is being okay to be in the trenches of that ugliness that exists, taking care of yourself so that you can endure that, because you can absorb all of those people's troubles. I think particularly in my field, one of the probably the hardest things to deal with is that, you know, we look at our military and we really take pride in it, or we should. And there's a lot of ugliness in the military, and there's a lot of victimization that happens, not just when they go abroad to other places, but we do it to them here. And so you have to have the ability to be empathetic, be sympathetic, be present, but not absorb it to the point where you also become victimized as well, because then you're not as effective with them. And so in my work, I feel like there's this balance that you have to have between being super present and involved, but also not immersing yourself where you are absorbing their trauma. The people I work with are traumatized, and our job is to talk through that trauma and move forward. And some of the stories that you hear are just so horrific. And if you want to keep your humanity, you have to really have the balance, because you can look at people and say, oh, the world's not safe. You know, the things we're supposed to trust, like the government and the military, and it might not be safe. And so to keep that, you have to have a really good balance in the work that I do. And again, I think it is a calling, like Michael said. You know, you'll know it's a fit when you're in it, because you'll get burned out really fast if it's not. And you'll get burned out to the point where you're tired, but you'll do what you have to do to re-energize and get back into work. You'll really work hard to stay in the work. That's when it's the calling. When it's not, you'll be like, I'm burnt out, I'm done. And then you'll go into another field, and that's fine. It's probably helpful to the cause to do that. But yeah, I think you just have to have the balance between, you know, being super involved and attached, but also not absorbing it so much that you also become, you know, bitter and upset and not trusting and all the other stuff that comes with it.
All right, Glynis, thank you. Michael Kitsis, same question. What do you think are the key personality traits or skills required to be successful in a career in mental health?
I think perseverance. Um, you start out like, like Maurice was saying, actually my daughter just started out working for Seneca, which is a agency in Washington State. And, you start out and you don't know that much and you kind of have to, it's easy to get overwhelmed because you have to take in a lot of information, you take in a lot of pain. People challenge you a lot, so, but it's all good. And, if as Glynis said, if you're on that path, not that it's going to be easy, not that you're not going to have difficult times sometimes, but I think for me, if you're on this path, you know that you kind of have the attitude that life isn't just to be happy. Life has to have some kind of cause or purpose or reason. And that cause or purpose and reason in our world is to try to help. So to be compassionate, to be helpful, and to persevere when it's really tough.
All right, thank you. And finally, Michael Padilla, what about you? What do you think are the key skills and personality traits?
I have to agree with everyone. I would repeat a lot of what they already said, but just to kind of add something else to what was previously mentioned is, I think in order to be successful in this type of field with social services, mental health, or anything like that, is a sense of flexibility too, because every day doesn't look the same. One day could be very client focused and handling crisis and really connecting someone to resources. And then the next day could be full of meetings and planning and discussing where the program is going to go and how things may change. And then you have to be flexible in that there's different requirements that are coming down from different regulatory agencies, whether that be mental health, social services, and all of that stuff. So you got to be flexible and really knowledgeable about the information so that you can best equip the people that you're working with to navigate those systems. So I think a sense of flexibility is crucial in the line that we do.
Okay. Michael, I'm going to stay with you for the next question, if you don't mind. What kind of training? So we've heard everybody talking about, undergrad degrees. We've heard some talk about, advanced degrees. What is required for, say, a social worker?
For me, like in my position, I think what's been most beneficial and what kind of training I've gotten has been like the actual work experience that I've had, like working in different programs that have like at its core a lens of equity, right? Because not every system is equitable. Not every system works how it's supposed to work for every individual that is participating within that system. So that understanding of equity versus equality and whatnot, and helping individuals make a system equitable for themselves, giving them and empowering them the knowledge to do so, has been crucial for me. Luckily for the position that I'm in, I only need a bachelor's degree, but the bachelor's degree in the undergraduate education that I did get has helped me in that sense of understanding equity, understanding systems, understanding how to empower people to navigate those things, and how to teach them. So I do have a background in education and labor studies, and all of that combined really helps me with the families that I work with.
Okay, thank you. Michael Kitsis, we'll take it back to you.
So to be a therapist at Solano County Mental Health, you need to first have a bachelor's degree in a related field like psychology or counseling, maybe sociology or something like that. And then you need to usually you go out and get some experience working for an agency or something. And then you go back and get a master's degree, which is a 2-year degree. You can also choose to get a PhD, but most people get a master's degree. And you end up becoming either a licensed marriage and family therapist, licensed clinical social worker, or a licensed professional counselor. And in between that, once you get your master's degree, you have to get 3,000 hours of supervised training. So it's pretty in-depth, and it's a tough road. But once you get there, you have that, and you just have to do ongoing kind of continuing education units, and you're licensed in order to see families and kids or adults in therapy.
So I want to actually dive in a little bit deeper to that question, because you mentioned the 3,000 hours, which, you know, a full-time job in a year is 2,080 hours. So I would imagine that somebody who's going to school and getting their undergraduate degree and then going on to that master's degree could very well have a family, is possibly working another full-time job. Do you have recommendations of how somebody would go about getting those hours while still balancing the responsibilities of being an adult?
Yeah, mental health actually right now is a very tight field. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity in mental health, a lot of call for people that are trained because there are a lot of needs, especially from the pandemic. So right now, it's actually easier than when I came along back in the Stone Ages. So at this point, you know, we at Solano County Mental Health, we have internships that we actually hire people into, and other agencies have that too. So you can get some kind of stipend, and actually after you get your master's degree, you can actually come on as a full-time person that gets supervision from a licensed person, and you can actually get quite a decent salary at that point.
That's great. So Glynis, I'll throw that same question at you. You know, first and foremost, the type of training that's required for doing what you do, and then in that internship component, how have you seen that fulfilled?
Okay, so I work for the federal government. So there are certain requirements you have to have minimum to be a social worker. So even in case management, social work, you have to have a bachelor's degree, and that could be in social work. It can be in another liberal arts, humanities type of field. So sociology, psychology, anything like that. And you don't have to have much experience when you first start. You can just have the degree. In the position that I'm in right now, so I'm a director of a vet center, I have to have a master's degree in social work, psychology. It could be education, I believe. It could be some other fields too, but I have a social work degree. I also have to have a clinical license. So like Michael was saying, you know, as you go through your studies, when you're in undergrad, you are not necessarily accruing any hours or anything. You graduate, you can go, in some states, you can get what's called an LMSW, which is a licensed master's social worker. And I'm only speaking for me because I'm a social worker. So a lot of states, as soon as you graduate, you qualify for that. You pay a fee. In some states, you take an exam. So I had to take a national exam to qualify, well, to pass and then to get that license. After I got that license, in order to get my clinical social work license, I had to go through the 3,000 hours of clinical supervision with a licensed clinical social worker who is in the same state that I am at that time. So through the federal government, I was able to use my actual job supervisor to get my clinical hours. So I was working a job as a social worker in mental health with the VA, and then I was also able to get hours at the same time. That's the beauty of the VA or federal service. A lot of times you could be working and learning, but also getting the hours you need to get whatever license you want. So I was able to earn my clinical license while working as an employee. After that, I have to do a bunch of other things to maintain my license. Also, as a director, I have to be able to provide clinical supervision to my staff who are in need of a license. I'm actually licensed in multiple states. That's for a number of reasons. I lived in multiple states with the VA, and I didn't let go some of my licenses. And yeah, I just have to keep it up with continuing education credit so that it is active. That's a requirement of my job. So as soon as I'm no longer licensed, then I run the risk of losing my job. So, and another thing within my work, because I work with trauma clients, we are certified in certain trauma treatment protocols. And so some of those require, so I'm licensed in cognitive processing therapy, which you do like a 2 or 3 day training, and then you do 6 months of consultation. So you have to have a certain amount of completed successful cases in order for you to be nationally certified in that particular modality. So we also have that component to our job as well.
All right, thanks, Glynis. And Maurice, how about you? Do you have anything you want to add to this?
I could add because it's kind of in between with what Michael and Glynis were saying. See, when I graduated, I went to school out of state, so I was on the licensed professional counselor track. That was my track originally, so I went to school for that, and then once I graduated with my graduate degree, I went to school out of state, and that was for mental health counseling. When I moved back to California, I didn't really have that guidance and know what to do. I knew 3,000 hours were there. I didn't know about the Board of Behavioral Services because I wasn't that connected in California at the time. So, like you were saying, we're in California. I had to pay bills, so I jumped into another field. That's how I got into corrections, and I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do. I always knew I would be back in the mental health field or social work field somewhere. So yeah, I was just paying bills and then working, and then I was just waiting for an opportunity to get back into the field. And I knew it wasn't going to be counseling per se for me because I like to be in the field. So my position now as a social worker 4, you are required to have a graduate degree for that one, and then social worker 4 for us is working in crisis management. You're working with the families who are in crisis, so it just seemed like the perfect dream job for me. So I'm hopped into that and from corrections, and I'm absolutely loving it.
That's great. Okay. So
I'm sorry, I just wanted to add one thing, if that's okay. When Michael talked about, that you have to have a passion for this, a lot of what we're talking about, we paid for. So when you are going for your licenses, we pay for those. Your job doesn't typically pay for you to pay for your application. In California, it's very expensive. So it's, $400 off. Well, for a master's level, it's $400 just for the application. Then you have to get fingerprinted. You have to take certain classes depending on how long it's been since you've been in school. There's a lot to it. So when we also say that you have to have a passion, it's you are investing in your career. And there's quite a bit of financial not responsibility, but like financial costs that you're going to have to maintain being at the top of your field in this work. And all of us are. And so it's a lot of money involved. So I want to be realistic about that as well. We may get free supervision hours, but beyond that, a lot of our jobs are not going to pay for us to actually get the license. That's an investment you have to make on your own.
Okay, thanks, Glynis. Well, so that will segue into my next question, actually, because I know that, students in particular, the high school students that I work are always asking these types of questions. What is the typical, and Maurice, we're going to start with you. What is the typical salary range for somebody in your position?
Someone in my position, I would say I'm just going to go for yearly. I would say I've seen anywhere from like 75 to 95.
Okay.
1,000, yeah.
Okay.
So that's usually the range I see for that. And then I've noticed it increases per how much education you have.
Okay, great. Glynis, what about you?
So my position is kind of tricky because you could be a social worker, you could be a psychologist, you can be a licensed marriage and family therapist. And so our salaries kind of differ in the same position because your education and your licenses are different. Psychologists make way more money than social workers. So my current position makes anywhere from like $101,000 a year on up. But our job is in the process of being as competitive as the VA medical center. So they start off probably like $103 or $105 and up. So $1,000. And so, you can make money in social work.
All right, Michael Padilla, what about you? And again, it's just a range.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to like what Marie said, right? Because we do work at the same agency,
Mhm.
so it is in a tiered level, and it's also based off years of experience within your organization too. So the more that you are in that role, and the longer that you stay, the more you make. So it ranges. It does stay below a social worker four, but it's still decent money where you're making like anywhere from 70 to like 90, which is just below, and you can get a little bit of a boost, which helps me because I'm also bilingual, because there is a need for, at least in Napa County, for Spanish bilingual workers. So we do have stipends and all of that stuff to increase your wage because you are bilingual.
All right, thank you. Michael Kitsis.
So in Solano County Mental Health, you know, we have kind of paraprofessionals. We have something called mental health specialists. When it comes to the therapists, if you start out, if you come on not yet licensed but getting your hours, you could start at 85,000. Step 5 of a licensed therapist, about 115,000, and a supervisor would be about 125,000. A manager would probably be about 140,000 up to 150 something thousand. So, you know, it's like a pyramid, but there is opportunity if you don't want to just be a therapist and you actually think you're good, or you feel like you have good skills in management. There's opportunities.
And it sounds like with all of the positions, there's always that place to start and the opportunity to move up. So that's good to hear. All right, so Michael Kitsis, I'm going to stay with you. How important is collaboration in your work?
Collaboration is incredibly important in our work. You know, we work a lot in multidisciplinary teams. Maybe we'll have a paraprofessional and a therapist and a psychiatrist, all working together on a case with a very kind of a complex case with a kid and a family. And if you're not collaborating, if you're not listening to each other, if you're not kind of trying to speak in one voice, it gets very confusing for the family and very confusing for the people that you're trying to help. So collaboration is extremely important.
All right, thank you. Michael Padilla.
I agree with Michael. It's like it's crucial because in our line of work, we're not dealing with just simple families with simple needs. We're dealing with complex family structures with complex needs, and sometimes working with multiple members of that family that may be connected to mental health services, may be connected to alcohol and drug services, may have dealt with domestic violence, maybe veterans and stuff like that. So we have to be advocates for a lot of our families and connect to those different resources, like Michael said, so we can have that consistent messaging. Me and Maurice collaborate all the time together, which is nice because we sit like in the same room, but we have similar families that we're working on that may have a crisis going on, and aren't ready to be housing focused, but then will come to me once Maurice helps them get some stabilized, and now they can really focus on housing. So we're collaborating, always continuously communicating with all the people involved with these families to make sure that we get the best outcomes at the end of the day.
All right, thanks, Michael. Glynis, same question for you. How important is collaboration in what you do?
So my center, we only have counselors, and so we're a human field, social work, and we're the kings and queens of resources. And we do realize that the whole person has multiple needs. And so I may be able to address the counseling need, but I can't address the medication need or the housing need or the social service need, the childcare needs. I mean, we're dealing with a whole person. And so collaborating allows us to be able to treat the whole person. And we recognize that it's more than just coming in for counseling counseling. Oh, the reason why I'm coming into counseling is because I can't pay my bills. So connecting with community resources to be able to resolve that issue is helpful, because then the nature of our work can be more effective. How do we prevent this in the future? How do we safeguard ourselves from this in the future? Or how do we deal with if we're in child welfare? If we have regular communication with them, we can understand the process a lot better. And I think Michael Padilla said it very clearly. These systems are very complex. I work in a bureaucracy that has all kinds of levels, and it is just a maze to go through. And so if we know where the resources are and we're educated about those resources and up to date on those resources, then we can better help our clients navigate these different systems that they're involved in. So it's vital to our work if we want to help the whole person to collaborate with all these entities, because they're going to be involved in some way at some point in their life with these places. And so it's beyond just mental health, it's the whole person. So as social work, I really consider us to be the resource go-to. We are the ones that are going to tell you where to go. We're the ones telling them, go to Napa Valley College, go here, go there, go to this program, because we are trying to connect and make sure that the whole person is whole.
Great, thanks, Glynis. Maurice, anything to add?
Not really. That's pretty much everything.
All right, well, let's have you start with the next one.
Okay.
How do you, so obviously everybody that we're talking to today, you're so passionate about what you do. And I would imagine that when you are that passionate, it's sometimes difficult to leave it at the door. How do you maintain your work-life balance?
Work-life balance. It's
What's
so
that,
important.
right?
It's the most important, right? I just try to stay I try to stay active. I try to stay active, and I try to just stay as peaceful as I can. I don't do a lot anymore, but I do. I stay in the gym. I stay active. I try to eat right. I try to drink my water. I always have my water cup. I just try to make sure that my body and my mind are as much peace and peak performance as I can be to be ready for this world, because I love it. I love being in it. So I want to make sure that I am maintained and I am always present with the people that I work with.
That's great. Thank you, Maurice. Michael Kitsis.
I think it helps me a lot to have family, and I've had 2 kids that have kind of grown up. One's graduated from college, one's just starting college, and I have my relationship with my wife that I've had for a long time, and I just it was harder in the beginning, but now I just kind of learned to let it go, and I know that I can't fix everything. I can't solve anything. I put my whole self into it when I'm there, and I kind of try to like burn it out completely in a way, and then, okay, I've done what I do, we'll try again tomorrow.
All right, great. Michael Padilla.
Again, I think it's like, to echo both what Maurice and Michael just said, it's like being it's hard to set boundaries for yourself and say, hey, I'm not going to look at the email after 5, but it's super important in order so you can have that time to re-energize, like trying to set and be strict with your boundaries and whatnot, because regardless, at the end of the day, the systems that we work with unfortunately do work anyways from 8 to 5. So you could try to do as much as possible after that time, but it's really hard to get anything done regardless, because there's doors are closed, offices are closed, and whatnot. But also finding a way to re-energize and finding little hobbies. Like for me, I like to personally garden and I like to cook. So I do a vegetable and fruit garden every summer that I then use to cook for me and my family and stuff like that. And that kind of lets me detach from the work a little bit, even though it may come back after I'm done, but at least that hour, 2 hours that I spend a day working in there helps me re-energize and gets me to detach a little bit.
That's great. That's great, Michael. Thank you. And Glynis.
I'm like, wow, guys, you guys don't stay late. I'm the only one that did. No, I'm just joking. I agree. There is a balance that you have to have. I always tell my clients that this analogy of when you're on an airplane and they go through this security or the safety, you know, announcement, and they say, when the mask drops down, put yours on first before you help somebody else. And so if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to have the energy to actually help somebody else. And so what I've instituted at my job, we have a lot of flexibility. We can be very creative in our work. And so we have a mindfulness drop-in every Tuesday from 12 to 12:30. And each one of my counselors and myself, we rotate being the one that facilitates that group. And so we're practicing with them, taking a pause, taking a breather, grounding ourselves, being in the present moment, being grateful, practicing gratitude, working on anxiety, whatever the topic is for mindfulness. I also instituted with my team because we are busy. And like Michael Padilla said, look, your day is different every day. So every Friday we have a staff lunch. And so it causes all of us, me, my staff, everyone to take a break, actually eat a meal and actually mindfully eat that meal and not rushing and doing notes by eating our meal. We take walks, we have cycling groups. We do these activities with our clients as well so that we can also get some relief and a break. On the side of that, I lift weights. I'm not an expert like Michael looks there. He looks very fit. So I'm not as avid of a weightlifter as he is, but weightlifting is really stress relieving for me. It's a very physical thing and it really gets out a lot of things. I also binge watch really good historical shows. I don't know if anybody's watching The Serpent Queen. It's awesome. You should watch it. And then I read. So I like to immerse myself in a world somewhere else. And so I'll read as well. So I try to do as much as I can.
I think you meant Maurice when you were talking about weightlifting. You said Michael.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant Maurice. Yeah, he looks very fit.
No,
So I was like, I
Michael,
But
lift
thank
Michael
weights,
you,
but
though. Thank you.
I don't
too.
think I don't think I lift like you do, Maurice, but I definitely lift. It's very helpful. And I think something physical. So everybody mentioned something physical is really helpful because we store energy. So when we are working with other people, we store that, we absorb that. And so as social workers to try to release it, something physical is really helpful. So whether it's gardening, weightlifting, exercise, having fun with the family, like, you know, you do it in high school now anyway. You have a lot more fun as a high schooler than you do as an adult. Like, keep some of that. Don't become super hyper analytical and think you have to just work. Like, have fun too.
Right. Well, great segue, because I'm going to go off script a little bit here and throw out the final question. Because we do have high school students that are listening to this, as well as college students and even those that are out working. But if you were to give your high school self career advice today, as they were thinking about going into your field, what might that advice be? And Maurice, you're looking like you're really thinking hard. So I'm going to start with you.
Oh my God. Dang, that's a tough question. Um, that's a tough question because man, high school me. You might have to come back to me. I don't even know.
Okay,
I
I can
don't
do
even
that.
know.
Michael, it says, I know that you've got kids that have just come out of high school. So maybe we'll go to you. What advice have you given them? What advice would you have given yourself back in high school?
My advice to them is, look, it's not everybody's in the same place, right? I mean, we're fortunate enough to be able to, explore some and not feel like, you need every dollar to make your ends meet. So if you do, that creates a whole different environment. So I really want to respect that. But in general, my thing is like, do what you love, do what you like, and that will lead you to where you have to go. Like, for example, for my son, he plays music, he plays percussion, he plays the drums. So he's getting a bachelor's in music at Sacramento State. And he might not end up in that, but if he had to start out going and doing, English, math, and social studies right off the bat, I think he'd hate it, and that would dissuade him from going further. So, do the best you can, do what you're interested in.
All right. Thank you. Good advice. Glynis, what about you?
I was like Maurice. I was like, man, I don't know what I would tell my younger self. Because I never envisioned social work as a field I would jump into because I grew up with it. I grew up with children coming to our home, trying to have a safe haven. My mom, crossing boundaries and having clients come to our house and all kinds of things. And so I didn't want that lifestyle. But what I would say to myself now that I guess I'm a lot more in the field and more mature, is that it's okay not to be ordinary. I think outside the box, dare to be different, and just explore whatever you want. This field allows you to do it all. So, there is no limit to what and where you can go in this field.
Right. Great advice. Michael Padilla.
Kind of similar to what just was mentioned. I think I would tell myself, like, there's an endless of possibilities, right? So don't just narrow yourself down to one. So like during high school, in my early years of community college, I thought business was the way to go, economics, law school, and all of that stuff. But there's an endless of possibilities. So that could lead you to that same direction. It doesn't have to be a particular pathway. Be okay with the hills, the turns, the exits, and the back into the journey and all of that stuff. And where you're supposed to be is where you're going to end up being.
Great advice. All right, Maurice, back to you.
Well, okay, I got it now. I was thinking because like I didn't have an ordinary path in high school or in college because it was more like my incentives were elsewhere. They were sports. Like that's what I was really passionate about. But thinking about it now, it's okay to feel because I've always felt confused with the classes and what path I wanted to go. And I was just taking classes so I could play sports originally, but kind of now just being okay with that exploration because there wasn't a subject that got me until like I literally remember I had got a scholarship to a small school in Texas, and then I didn't like living in Texas. So I told my counselor, I said, I need to graduate as soon as possible. And then she put me in sociology classes because my credits were scattered, so that fit. But as soon as she put me in those sociology classes, I literally fell in love with them from the first class. And that's that was a far way into my educational journey.
So don't discount
Mm-mm.
any opportunity. All right. Well, with that, we're at 4:58. I want to thank you all again for sharing yourselves and sharing your stories and your passion with all of us today. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Sita.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you to our speakers for, coming here and spending time with us and the educators and high school students and college students and job seekers and all the people that this might, get out to. And, the whole time I was just listening to you all talk and I just felt like, oh, we have the best group of good people in the world with us right now. So thank you for the work that you do and for taking care of all of us in the way that you do. And we really appreciate it. And we appreciate you taking the time. And I will definitely send you the link to the video if you'd like to have it for your records. And with that, I'd like to release you all so you can go have a nice dinner tonight.
Thank you very
All
much.
right.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
everybody.
much.
Have a
Thank
great
Bye,
day.
you.
everybody.